Welcome, welcome. Good morning. This is the Daily Wrestling News for February 24th, 2021, and we are powered by the Eastern Observer. My name is Ryan Joy, and I'm coming to you live from Minutes to Valentine Studios on the beautiful Treasure Coast of the Sunshine State. And I am joined today by the living legend, John DeConi. Good morning, John. How are you, sir?
All right. Very good. So how about yourself this morning?
Great, great. Welcome to the studio, and let's get into some wrestling because we have a full lineup. We are going to talk about WWE Untold APA. We're a little overdue on that, but we both got it in, so we'll get to talking about that. Young Rock episode number 2. We're going to talk about that some. We got Impact from last night. NXT lineup for tonight. News and trivia to get all in this half hour, 40 minutes, whatever it takes us. So I'll ring the bell and we'll get started. But we start with our ridiculously random non-wrestling audience needs to know you better question of the day, which is brought to you by Pro Wrestling Pick'em. Pro Wrestling Pick'em is a place where you can join or host a Pick'em league to test your predictive skills in the world of pro wrestling. Create an account and join a league now at ProWrestlingPick'em.com so you can play against your friends or play against the universe. Join now, learn the platform. Season is starting up here in April 12th, I guess. So get yourself ready. John DeConi, you might go down. Mr. Al Carl has tied you.
Neck.
Okay, so today's question is, what's your favorite droid in the Star Wars universe?
Okay. Recency bias. I just went through the Rebels, Star Wars Rebels cartoon, and I really was loving Chopper. But when it comes right down to it, story of Star Wars, the Star Wars saga is really the story of R2-D2. I'm going to go Chalk.
I'm sorry, did you say R2-D2? Because you cut out for a second. I have an R2 on my desk here, so hopefully we don't get taken down on YouTube or anything because of the R2-D2 noise that came out of here. I don't think they've got that on a copyright.
Gotta be very careful.
All right, let's begin with APA Untold. What'd you think, John?
It was a lot of fun. It was not. It was very easily digestible. It was under 35 minutes, and once again, it's two guys who played rough and tumble tough guys just sitting around telling ring and road stories. And I mean, come on, what's better than that?
They had a really nice hook at the beginning. They talked about they started kind of dove right in and were like, when we had all these, we're always asked about these bar fights that we had over at Timmy White's bar. And he goes on to say, like, Bradshaw and Simmons are talking about how basically all the fight scenes were filmed in Tim White's bar. Tim White's a former referee and handler for Andre the Giant, and so Timmy White had his entire bar kind of redone on Vince McMahon's dime because the APA would go in and destroy it every week. So the old big heavy square TVs were all replaced with the brand new LED, flat panel type of stuff. So Timmy White was like, "Could you throw him through that door or that wall?" Type of thing. So kind of dove right in with a funny story like that. But I enjoyed it because it didn't start with just, hey, the APA's here. It started with here's the background of Ron Simmons, here's the background of Bradshaw, and they kind of come together and form the APA in the WWE in the late 90s. But they start by talking about Ron Simmons, whose grandmother was a huge wrestling fan. She's a fan of Bob Armstrong. He would go into college football. He got drafted by Cleveland, but then he didn't make the team. Of all people, he networked with Lex Luger to get into wrestling. I thought that was an interesting tidbit.
Yeah, they happened to play together in the USFL. So, and I had forgotten that Luger I knew he was a football player in college. I forgot that he had played professionally in the USFL. So.
Yeah. So incredibly weird. I wrote about a year ago now. I wrote an article at minutesbelltime.com about the Baltimore Arena. I was living in Maryland at the time, as I did for like 5 years. And it struck me that the Baltimore Arena was sort of like a historic wrestling venue. A lot of things happened there. But one of the most important things was in 1992, Bill Watts made the call that Ron Simmons was going to defeat Vader and become the first ever African-American world champion. And so he did power slam Vader, got the 1, 2, 3, and they covered that on the documentary, at least in brief detail. And then go ahead. Yep.
No, I thought it was very interesting because I remember that's the same Bill Watts that was around WCW at the, right in when Bischoff kind of took over. And I always thought, and once again, this, don't SpongeBob me, but I remember the word being that he was kind of an old, good old boy, kind of a Southern redneck, and the fact that it was Bill Watts that came to Ron Simmons and said, "We're going to put the world title on you," and Ron was like, "What? Me? Really? Why? Why not?
Yeah.
You're good. You're ready for it. Let's do it."
And Bill Watts, Cowboy Bill Watts, WWE Hall of Famer, he ran Mid-South Wrestling. That's sort of his big claim to fame. And the guys who were wrestling on top there were, Junkyard Dog and guys like that. So, he basically got up to Ron Simmons, "We're going to make history today." And so they did. He would come to WWE, and then they put the blue helmet on him. And Ron just talks about, it's like, I got to make it work. So I did. He would transition that into the Nation of Domination. Meanwhile, Bradshaw, he grows up in Sweetwater, Texas, where he said there were two sports, football and spring football. So, and he would come to WWE in 1995 after wrestling in Japan. It was interesting tidbit when he said that he watched WrestleMania 12 from the backstage area and said to himself, "I don't belong here." After watching Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels tear the house down, I guess. So,
if you're being honest with yourself, probably more than half the roster after watching that Iron Man match should have said that to themselves,
including the Ultimate Warrior.
Not least, yes.
So Bradshaw and Farouk would just start riding together. They become friends. Another interesting point, and I'm not sure, maybe you caught this, maybe you didn't. The person who introduced the Acolytes to WWE, the WWE audience, was Don Callis.
Don Aconda.
Yeah, as the Jackal, of course. But they tell a story about working with Public Enemy. I think Public Enemy came in and only had like 1 or 2 matches, and probably because they didn't want to do business here. So they loved working with the Dudleys. But the interesting story of how the APA formed out of the Acolytes, this was gold, I thought. And I've never heard this story before, but essentially they were working in Philly and they got Bradshaw drunk on the way to Baltimore.
For his birthday.
What's that?
For his birthday. So yeah, this wasn't just any night. It was his birthday. It was a special night.
Right. And so they're hanging out at the TV hotel and with the McMahons, and I guess they're completely wasted. The McMahons drop Bradshaw off in the limo at the Red Roof Inn, where him and Ron are splitting a hotel. And they wake up the next morning, discuss the situation. They're like, "Oh, we're going to get fired." So they go to the arena, and Vince, he does want to see them, or at least Bradshaw. And instead of getting fired, Vince wants to put their drinking act on television. Then the APA is born. So then they have their run as the APA is fun, with the whole backstage segments and the door that they have to walk through and stuff. So a lot of fun. And I thought
that door was just comedy gold every week.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting because I didn't necessarily remember vividly the whole breakup angle of the APA. And how
either.
Yeah, it completely, there was the televised portion of it was sort of like, Bradshaw, you've been carrying Ron Simmons and all that junk and stuff like that. And so they're going to keep Bradshaw and get rid of Ron Simmons. And Simmons kind of expected Ron to walk away, or Simmons expected Bradshaw to walk away with him, but they don't. And so they split. And the JBL character is born, and then we have his 250-day run as WWE champion or world champion, whatever it was. The segment really ends with them talking about Ron getting into the Hall of Fame and stuff like that, sort of the after, and the brotherhood that they had at that time. And Ron would go back to his early days and said, he didn't have the opportunity to grow up with his brothers, and teaming with Bradshaw sort of filled that void for him. So I guess the APA is really meaningful to these two guys.
Yeah, I mean, if you listen to Ron Simmons talk about the fact that his mother passed when he was 8, and his aunts came and took some of his brothers away. He doesn't talk about necessarily who raised him, if I remember, maybe his grandmother. And his aunts took a couple of his brothers away, and you can see on his face, he really feels like he missed out on having that brotherly bond. And then when you hear him talk about John Bradshaw Layfield, whatever you want to call him, and how much he meant to him, and you hear him call him brother. Like, if that doesn't hit you in the cockles of your heart, you might want to check for a heartbeat.
So it was good. And then, you know what, 30 minutes. So it's like you're not investing a lot of time to go watch this thing. So go and do it. And another 30-minute thing that you can watch is Young Rock. That was on last night. And, it's just a continuation of his presidential bid in the year 2032. John, what kind of stands out from your point of view on the episode? Any big gem?
Once again, we saw a little bit of some characters we know, even though that they didn't spend a lot of time talking to him like they did last episode. But we got to see a Roddy Piper character, and he looked pretty good. He had Piper's blue tights down and everything. The thing that stuck out the most to me, and it's nitpicking and it's not important, but it just made me chuckle. Rocky Johnson in this is flashing back to fighting Ric Flair. He's in the middle of another match, but he's remembering, or he's telling the story of fighting Ric Flair, because apparently his whole life was just telling stories of when he was great. Ric Flair really could have used a sandwich. The guy that they got to play Ric Flair, especially during the age that Rocky Johnson would have fought him, Rick, back in the day was very thick through the chest and broad-shouldered. The guy that they got to play him looked like James Ellsworth with a chin and a wig.
That's funny. I mean, it's we saw that flashback to Johnson versus Flair. We saw a flashback to Johnson versus Piper, as you mentioned, and all that. That is kind of a unique story element that they use, where every once in a while they flash back to one of these old classic Rocky Johnson matches in a way to talk about what's going on in the episode. And so this one is all, the whole premise of this entire episode is Dwayne, The Rock, asking out this girl, Karen. She's one of the Karens. There's Karen, and Bonnie. And so The Rock calls his dad, gets some advice and stuff, and tells him to be confident and show her, give her what nobody else can. And, so The Rock beats himself and he gets the date, and he's, along the way, he's stolen clothes to impress her. He brings her to a wrestling show. His dad tells him the wrestling show is at a college. It's at a flea market adjacent to the college. So she doesn't like that part, but she really gets sold on the wrestling. And if anybody's ever brought somebody to wrestling that didn't watch wrestling, this is commonly what happens. They start by like, why am I here? And then they kind of get sucked into the energy. And, that's what happened with Karen in this episode. And so she really loved it, had a great time, didn't like the flea market aspect. And at the end of the episode, somebody calls wrestling fake, and Rocky drops him, knocks him right out. So
do not use the F word.
Right. And it goes back and forth. We go back and forth between The Rock, 2032 Rock, and the old scenes. So it's the same sort of like over narration type of thing. So fun episode.
Yeah, one of the things that's consistent between Rock sitting down for the interview and Rock talking to Karen is I'm starting to get the feeling like, Rock loves his dad. Rock actually idolizes his dad. Starting to get the feeling Rock didn't really like his dad too much. He has that kind of that abused wife line of like when people were like, "Well, why? What are you doing? Why are you staying? Why'd you put up with this?" And he's my dad.
Yeah, yeah, and they're also presenting a little bit of a conflict. Maybe not a conflict, but at least some storyline conflict pertaining to money with The Rock's mom. Right now, she's taking on a job cleaning houses and things like that to bring in extra money. So definitely some interesting playoff there, and we'll see how that pans out for Rocky Johnson. So with those documentaries and television shows in the books, how about some wrestling from last night, John? How about Impact Wrestling?
Yeah, let's do some of that wrestling.
So Jake something, he's sort of the MVP of the show last night, right? He gets two matches in your 2-hour episode. He gets a win over Cody Deaner in the first match. He puts him through a table. It was kind of an interesting finish where Cody is running down the ramp and Jake snatches him and slams him through the table. He doesn't get to celebrate for very long though because Moose comes to the ring, beats up Jake, and then holds the show hostage. So, how do you feel, John, about the TNA World Championship becoming an official title? Because that's what it took to get Moose out of the ring.
Yeah, it's interesting. I didn't know that they would ever actually declare it, a world title, but I assume that somewhere along the line we're going to get Swan versus Moose, and regardless of who wins it, you can call that a title unification, so that that TNA title can go away. But now maybe not. I don't know. Maybe that sticks around. No idea what their plans are. You're going to go broke betting on guessing what TNA is going to do or Impact is going to do next. But it made for an interesting segment last night for sure.
I read a year ago or so when they were promoting the build up to the WrestleMania weekend where they had the TNA reunion show that the original plan was to have a spin-off show with the TNA World Championship involved. So I don't know if maybe they're going to go back to that. The pandemic happened, everything gets canceled, but maybe that's something they're looking at still doing.
So. Yeah, I remember also reading that the reason Moose just picked it up backstage and ran with it was that they were going to kind of use that. I don't know if it was going to happen at the pay-per-view or at that spinoff show you're talking about. I didn't read about the spinoff show, but they were going to do kind of the old Jeff Jarrett King of the Mountain routine. And that was going. And Moose was supposed to win that, and by winning it, he would take that title and have a run with that. So yeah, I guess that all kind of meshes together.
Absolutely, yep. The triple threat match got set for next week. So this week we had a 6-man tag match, and the winning team will then compete next week for a shot at the X Division title at some point down the road. So. This week, it was Chris Bay, Ace Austin, and Black Taurus getting the win over Trey, Josh Alexander, and Willie Mack. Chris Bay hits the Art of Finesse on Willie Mack. So 2 things. I predicted that team would win, but I really didn't think it was going to be Chris Bay getting the win here and not over. I mean, I guess Willie Mack makes sense, but I didn't think it would be Chris Bay. I thought they would be pushing Taurus or Ace Austin.
Yeah, certainly. That they seem the most likely, but yeah, we got a replay of the end of Chris Bay taking Willie Mack's X Division title, kind of, except for the Enziguri by Ace Austin, it kind of unfolded the same exact way.
Absolutely. And then Trey and Sami Callihan finally got physical on the show. So when Trey walks back through the curtain and Sami continues to go at him. So that presumably a sacrifice match, I guess, hasn't been announced yet.
Yeah, Sami seemed absolutely pleased with himself that he finally got Trey to snap and take a swing. So, yeah, that's certainly coming.
Yeah, I'll fast forward a little bit here. So, Nevaeh and Havoc, that storyline continues. Nevaeh is just needs some more time. Tenille Dashwood continues to try to sneak in and get involved. Havoc's not really interested. Gallows and Anderson, they got a win over Triple XL. Magic Killer on Larry D. Finjuice picked on Gallows and Anderson for taking too long to beat Triple XL. And now we have next week a match: Good Brothers and Finn Juice versus Triple XL and Reno Scum. I don't think anybody's picking Triple XL and Reno Scum to win that match, but
Wouldn't I think so?
we go back to Swingers Palace. Man, Storm and Rohit get into some sort of issue, and then Saban stands up and is like, "Look, guys, I love this place, and I don't want to get kicked out. So please, And Swinger says, "Nobody's gonna get kicked out, Daddy. I'm gonna take bets on that match." So I guess next week we have it is Rohit and Shera versus Saban and Storm on the pre-show BTI. So, Eddie Edwards gets a win over Hernandez. Hernandez wasn't Edwards' scheduled opponent, though. He was supposed to face Brian Myers, but Brian Myers says, "I can't wrestle." Apparently, Mark Sterling is now Brian Myers' lawyer. He used to be a lawyer on AEW. Now he's a lawyer over here. He took a loss to Jon Moxley last year. Anyway, Mark Sterling says the new contract that Myers signed says he can pick his replacement, so he picks Hernandez. Eddie Edwards beats Hernandez. Lots of stuff going on there. Next week, we have Brian Myers versus Eddie Edwards, and Matt Cardona is the special guest referee. Jordan Grace and Jazz earn their Impact Tag Team Championship, Knockout Tag Team Championship match. So they'll be facing that. They'll be facing Kiera and Tasha at Sacrifice. And then Moose ended up getting his win over Jake something. But Rich Swann did make an appearance. Scotty D'Amore told us he wasn't there, but he must have not been there at the time. So,
or
now,
Scott,
John, do you think at Sacrifice we have a title change coming? I mean, this has been a long time building Moose, like over.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, unless we have some kind of interference, maybe AEW does a whole, I don't want to call it an invasion angle, but maybe, unless they have some guys show up just to create chaos, it's hard for me to see a way out for Rich Swann. Like, this is obviously coming, so why not do it there? How do you prolong it? Like I said, unless somebody, gets involved to make it happen another way.
Right.
If I had to bet, I'd bet on the title switch unless there's shenanigans.
Yeah, I feel that way right now as well. Moose takes this title, and on the other match, by the way, Kiera Hogan and Tasha Steelz, I think they retain. I think it's too early for them to drop their titles.
Yeah, probably.
NXT tonight, we talked about Dynamite on the show yesterday. So if you need to know what's going on in Dynamite, do check out yesterday's Daily Wrestling News show. But today we'll talk NXT, at least briefly. Adam Cole is going to explain his recent actions, so that's good. Apparently, we'll find out what's going on with the Undisputed Era. As you can see, my Shock the System hat still there. Johnny Gargano versus Dexter Lumis in a non-title match. The Cruiserweight champion Santos Escobar is still facing Karrion Kross, but it's a no DQ match now. So I think this helps out Legado del Fantasma, being able to interfere for sure.
Yeah, this it certainly it keeps it from not that any of us really thought it was ever going to be a squash match, because you want Santos to look good in his eventual feat, but this definitely lengthens the match, getting Wild and Doze involved.
And then Xia Li versus Casey Catanzaro. We knew that from last week's angle. The Grizzled Young Veterans are going to face Fury and Furry tonight, so that should be fun.
Just as long as nobody gets attacked on the ramp during their entrance, I got to hear Furry and Fury's music.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we found out, we were doing some research to make sure we had all the last minute stuff before the show started. Io Shirai has a match on this show against Zoe Stark, formerly known as Lacey Ryan. She was on the show last week. So that'll be on tonight's episode. Do you think this is a squash? It's hard to tell because, Zoe Stark is new to the show, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, they they did a good job in putting her over last week in a relatively short match. So it seems like I'm not going to say it's going to be a star maker match like that the Io and Shotzi match from a couple months ago, but I think this match will have a little bit of length. I think Zoe will get to look, if not strong, capable. So
Right.
I don't see it being a squash.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the case too. And as we're about to talk about in the news, in fact, let's just go to the news so I can bring up the NXT recruits. Today's news is brought to you by the free Body Slam Brigade newsletter. Each week I compile the week's top wrestling stories. I put them all in a quick to read email that's divided up by company. Nearly 4,000 people get the free newsletter each week. In addition to the top stories, the newsletter keep you up to date on everything we're doing, whether that's new books, podcast, games, anything else. It's really the best way to make sure you don't miss a thing. The issue comes out every Friday. It is free, and don't miss it. We're getting very close to 4,000 subscribers now. So, okay, the news I was just kind of like teasing there is that this week we've had all these NXT recruits announced in the past, but they all reported yesterday to the Performance Center. Parker Bordeaux, who's the guy who looks like Brock Lesnar, a young version of him, Priscilla Kelly, Eliana Black, Lacey Ryan, Zoe Stark, who we just referred to, and Taya Valkyrie, and Blake Christian also. I don't know if we've talked about that on the show before, but Blake Christian also in this latest class of NXT recruits.
It's a shame that Impact couldn't find a way to lock him down. They gave him a platform. They made him look quite special, but up and coming. It's a shame they weren't able to lock him in.
It's happening a lot where if people hesitate on good talent, they're gonna get signed. There's too much competition right now, so you gotta make that signing. So, so it's interesting. Like we have already seen these people are reported for the first time yesterday, but they've already been on television, but they haven't had a report for class yet or whatever, I guess. So now it's interesting. Any of these people could show up on the show at any given time. Presumably not Parker Bordeaux because he has to go through actual training, and I think he's starting at square one. But the rest of them all have good television experience already. So
Parker Bordeaux, that's the one that's the NCAA champion.
Yeah, he's the one that looks like Brock Lesnar. I can't remember what his credential is. Yeah.
I think in getting him, they nailed down the. He's kind of like the what's his name, Chael Sanderson, that they weren't able to lock down back in the day. They got Brock. I think that next huge NCAA wrestler was Chael Sanderson, but he went right into coaching, I believe. And,
Gotcha.
And I know Vince wanted him.
So a couple other WWE notes. Samoa Joe has actually spoken to Sportskeeda about his future in the ring. Bottom line, I guess, for you is that he said that his in-ring career is not over by a long shot, but what he's doing is they're being very careful with his recovery and they're monitoring his health. He appreciated that his health is being respected at a premium, and so they're just being careful. And when the time is right, he'll make his return, but he does not think he is done. So
good, very good.
Yeah, we love Samoa Joe. We need to see him in the ring. There you go. There's the credential for Parker Bordeaux. He was an offensive lineman, and
okay.
Yeah, but they did sign an NCAA wrestling champion. We talked about that beforehand. It just wasn't I knew. Yeah. Okay, and then the last piece of news today, Sunday, April 18th, kicks off a relationship between A&E Network and WWE. A biography series airs at 8 p.m. that night, and then following that at 10 p.m., the new WWE's Most Wanted Treasures show kicks off. So the biography will be on Stone Cold Steve Austin, and then in subsequent weeks, they also have Roddy Piper, Macho Man Randy Savage, Booker T, Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, Ultimate Warrior, and Mick Foley. So tons of biographies going to A&E. And then on the WWE's Most Wanted Treasure side, Hunter Hearst Helmsley and Stephanie McMahon lead a team of collectors and wrestlers as they try to track down Collectibles like Kane's original masks, Ric Flair's butterfly robe, Andre the Giant's passport, and Andy Kaufman's neck brace. Triple H, Hunter Hearst Helmsley. I haven't said Hunter Hearst Helmsley in a long time.
Yeah.
But Paul Levesque, Triple H, whatever you want to call him. That is your news for today. John, we are done with the normal proceedings. Let me see. I don't know if I updated the scoreboard. Travis is 8 or 9 for 20 right now, so you're not in jeopardy there.
Yeah, he had a nice 4 for 5 yesterday, right?
That's right. Yeah, so he's now 9 for 20. So we'll update that to reflect. You are in good position to win the month again. You'll be a 2-time champion. Let's see how you do though. Today's trivia. If you get 5 questions, a simple majority correct gets you the W. If you win, you get the Goldberg-Oscar Award. And if you lose, you get a Hawkins. We are going to be talking about another February WWE pay-per-view that is not Elimination Chamber. It is the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, which took place in February 1999. And initial thoughts?
Oh, I'm trying to remember. I remember. Yeah, I think I have an idea. I'm not
Okay.
real locked in on it, but
Okay.
here we go.
So, The Rock challenged this man for the WWF Championship in a last man standing match. Was it A, Triple H, B, Mankind, C, Kane, or D, The Undertaker?
Mankind.
It was Mankind. Very good. And in this last man standing match, did The Rock win, lose, or neither because the match was a draw?
By virtue of the way you asked it, I'm going to say it was a draw.
It was a draw. Yeah. That kind of gave it away, I think. But yeah, they hit each other with chairs, and then neither one could answer the 10 count.
Is that what led to the empty arena ugly match?
I think the empty arena was halftime heat, which
Yeah, you're right.
should have been before this.
Before that.
Yeah. Steve Austin wrestled in the main event in a steel cage match against this man: Triple H, Undertaker, Mr. McMahon, or Mark Henry.
Now, this is the one part that I thought I remembered just when you said St. Valentine's Day Massacre was Mr. McMahon, right?
Mr. McMahon. Yep. 3 for 3. And no multiple choice on this question. How did Austin win the match?
Escaping the cage?
More specific.
Out the door?
Okay. I'm not going to give you credit for this because I think this is the essence of it. The Big Show came through the floor of the ring and then tossed Austin into the side of the cage. The cage broke open. Austin fell out and he won.
Oh my God, that's Paul White. Okay, yeah.
Yes, the debut of Paul White. Okay, I'm going to give you your 3 for 4. You were technically correct. He did win by escaping the cage, but I was looking for
the cage, just not by his own volition.
Yes. Okay, and so this question is also very fun. Opening contest: the Blue Meanie wrestled and lost in the opening contest against this man who still wrestles. Was it Goldust, Ken Shamrock, Jeff Hardy, or Billy Gunn?
Blue Meanie. It was Goldust, right? It was Goldust versus Blue Dust.
You're right. That's a good recall. That is a good recall. Goldust versus Blue Dust in the opening contest of St. Valentine's Day Massacre in 1999. As we all as the viewership drops right before my eyes.
I promise never to dance again.
All right, so 4 for 5. Great job on that. As I bring up your And Daniel Bryan continues to go on the back. All right. So before we get out of here, let's tell people about some stuff. Here is the chair shot. The chair shot is a steal of a deal. It not only it features a steel chair, but it is also a steal of a deal. It already comes in the super soft style, and no upcharge for that. The same price for double XL, triple XL, whatever. No upcharges whatsoever. It's $20. It's an awesome shirt with an awesome design. John DeConnie is wearing it right now, which is a happy coincidence. So let me take this thing down. People can see it. Boom. There it is. So definitely get your hands on one of those. $20. Like I said, steal of a deal.
Absolutely.
And then also some other things while you're wearing that shirt that you can watch. Tune in every Friday night at 6 p.m. on the Eastern Observer for the Primetime Rundown. Joey J. Darzanka, Ian Schreier, and Rob DeLuca on Friday nights for the Primetime Rundown. They take you through the world of sports. Like I said, 6 p.m. on the Eastern Observer. And the Essential Wrestling Podcast. It airs every Tuesday. You can currently, right now, go see the replay of last night. Al Carl hosts with John DeConnie and myself and John Smith and Gary Mahaffey. They take you through the week of updates and highlights in the world of wrestling. Coverage is, again, at 6 p.m. on every Tuesday. So go watch last night's episode, and then you'll be psyched and ready to watch next week's live. Drop all that other wrestling that's happening on Tuesdays and watch the Essential Wrestling Podcast. And then our show, the Daily Wrestling News Show, returns tomorrow with John Smith. We'll be talking about NXT and Dynamite from tonight. It'll be a lot of fun. Our show airs every day, Monday through Thursday at 10 a.m. This week, we will have a Friday special. Gary Mahaffey and I will interview Georgia Smith, daughter of the late Davey Boy Smith, the British Bulldog. We're actually going to, just in full awareness, everybody, it won't be a live episode. We are going to tape that tomorrow and then air it on Friday. So should be a great show. A lot of fun to listen to. John DeConnie, thank you so much. And thank you for wearing the shirt today.
Always a pleasure. And absolutely. So soft, so comfy.
All right, let's get out of here.